My boss said I was redundant. I told him. Then fire me if you dare. 3 days later, the CEO was screaming my name. That's the part people always remember: the shouting, the panic, the way the conference line went dead after that single, broken sentence. But what came before was quieter, colder. My name is Maren Doyle, 41 years old, senior compliance specialist at Belridge Biotech in Baltimore. 10 years in the same chair, same faded badge, same steady rhythm. I wasn't flashy, but I kept the company alive without them noticing. That was my mistake, keeping it alive too quietly. Matt Ridley walked in 6 weeks ago, all white teeth and boardroom cologne. He was the new efficiency fixer, the kind of man who used words like synergy without irony. During his first meeting, he looked at me the way people look at outdated software, functional but waiting to be deleted. This morning, he finally did it. The room was packed: analysts, HR, even 2 interns pretending to take notes. Matt stood near the projector, sleeves rolled up, the smile of a man who believed charm could outpace competence. "No one's helping you, sweetheart," he said, slow and clear, as if rehearsed. I felt every eye shift toward me. My pulse steadied instead of racing. I'd been preparing for this moment since the day he arrived. I met his grin with a small one of my own. "Then fire me," I said, "if you dare." The silence that followed wasn't dramatic, it was surgical. He blinked once, twice, as if recalibrating who was in charge. Then, louder. "Security, throw her out. Now, chair scraped. HR froze. Someone's coffee spilled." I stood, smoothed my jacket, and collected the folder on the table, the one he thought contained training notes. It didn't. It held something far more precise. As the guards led me toward the glass doors, he leaned in and hissed, "You'll regret this, Maren." I smiled without looking back. "You first." Outside. The harbor wind cut through my coat, sharp and clean. Behind me, the building's reflection trembled on the glass like a warning. In 48 hours, it would all come down, and I was the one who set the timer. Matt Ridley arrived on a Monday that smelled like burned coffee and new rules. HR called him a temporary consultant from Chicago, but everyone knew what that meant. The company didn't bring in men like him to advise, they brought them in to erase. He was young, maybe early 30s, sharp haircut, perfect teeth, the kind of man who thought confidence was a skill set. "We're going to make this place leaner, faster, smarter," he said in the first meeting, pacing with a headset like he was launching a rocket instead of cutting jobs. The younger analysts leaned forward, wide-eyed, nodding as if buzzwords were oxygen. The older staff just stared at their hands. When he said synergy, I could almost hear the collective exhale of dread. "Who's managing compliance here?" he asked, scanning the room. I raised my hand. "Maren Doyle." He looked at me for exactly 1 second too long. "Ah, the legacy system expert." His smile never reached his eyes. After the meeting, he appeared at my cubicle. "I'll need full access to all regulatory files," he said. "Dashboards, renewal chains, whatever you keep in your, archives. Those are restricted," I said evenly. He leaned against the divider, lowering his voice. "See, that's the problem. Restriction. It slows progress. I'm sure you understand that times change." "I do," I said. "That's why I keep records." He laughed softly, a practiced sound. "I like your confidence. Let's make sure it doesn't get misaligned." When he left, I opened my drive and began to copy everything: licensing documents, certification renewals, internal approvals, each tied to my digital signature. I renamed the folder Church Pancake Recipes and uploaded it to a private cloud. Through the window, I could see Baltimore's harbor cranes rising beside the new biotech towers, iron against glass. Old bones holding up new ambition. The skyline looked like a warning no one was reading. By late afternoon, Matt's voice carried down the hallway, charming a group of interns. "We need to phase out the old infrastructure," he said. I saved the backup and closed my laptop. Old infrastructure, I thought. That meant me. The office was silent after 8. Most people were already home, streaming shows or forgetting their day. I stayed, not because I had work, but because quiet is the only time truth speaks clearly. The glow from my monitor flickered against the glass, reflecting a woman who looked steadier than she felt. I opened the folder labeled Church Pancake Recipes and scrolled past the licenses I'd copied. 43 documents, each with a federal seal, each tied to my signature, one name connecting them all mine. I opened another file, my employment contract, dated 10 years ago. The font was small, the legal language thick as fog, but I knew exactly where to look. Clause 7C. In the event of termination due to redundancy, all company-funded certifications and regulatory credentials shall be considered void within 48 hours of contract nullification. It was my handwriting in the margin, the faint note I'd added 5 years earlier after a near merger, confirm biometric signatory exclusivity. I had slipped it in during the contract revision round when no one was paying attention, just another compliance tweak in a sea of paperwork. I printed the page, stamped it, and slipped it into a plain folder. The next morning, I'd take it to a notary near the train station. Just a precaution, I told myself. A safety pin in case the parachute failed. The hum of the air vents carried down the hall as footsteps approached. Matt's reflection appeared in the glass wall behind me. Still here, he asked. That's dedication or paranoia? Documentation, I said without turning. He smiled. Same thing, depending on who's watching. When he walked away, I shut the laptop and sat still for a moment. My pulse was calm. My decision wasn't born of anger or fear. It was survival written in legal ink. I slipped the notarized copy into the same flash drive that held every license and renamed it Breakfast Notes. Version 3. By the time the city lights dimmed, I'd already built my escape hatch quiet, invisible, and airtight. By Thursday morning, the office felt rehearsed, too quiet, too polite. I knew what was coming the moment I saw the meeting invite, team realignment and efficiency review. Matt stood at the head of the conference table, a blue slide glowing behind him that read, Restructure for Growth. He loved that word growth, even when it meant cutting the roots. Let's be honest, he said, pacing. Some of our processes are stuck in the past. We need agility, faster compliance responses, real-time accountability. He looked straight at me. I kept my voice even. Compliance doesn't run on slogans. Matt, it runs on law. A few people shifted in their seats. One intern bit his lip, eyes darting between us. Matt's grin thinned. No one's helping you, sweetheart, he said, his tone sugar over acid. I felt the sting hit the air. Not me. Then fire me, I said quietly. For a second. He froze. Then his voice cracked like a whip. Security, throw her out. HR flinched. The young man from the corner whispered, Matt, maybe we should. Now, he barked. 2 security guards appeared at the door. They didn't look at me. They never do. I stood, smoothed the front of my jacket, and gathered the folder in front of me. It looked ordinary training schedules, meeting notes, but inside was a notarized copy of Clause 7C. Let's call it redundancy. Matt told HR. Cleaner that way. I nodded once. Good choice. HR's hand trembled as she slid the paperwork toward me. I took my pen, pressed it to the page, and signed my name with one steady stroke. The click of the pen echoed in the room, small but final. When I looked up, Matt's smirk had already returned. You'll regret this. I held his gaze. You first. As the guards led me out, I caught Renee's eyes across the room, wide, unsure. I gave her a nod. Nothing more. Outside, the winter air felt sharper than usual. The harbor smelled like metal and salt. I walked toward the streetlight, folder tucked under my arm, my pulse steady. The game had just started, and I was already winning. The first night after they fired me, I didn't cry. I brewed coffee, turned on the old jazz station out of habit, and watched steam rise from the cup like it had somewhere better to be. My row house near Patterson Park was small, but quiet in a way the office never was. Every click of the radiator felt like a metronome counting down. I opened my laptop and logged into the private drive. Church pancake recipes. The folder opened without a sound. Inside, the 43 active licenses blinked green, still valid, still tied to my credentials. At the top of the screen, a new line of text appeared. Revocation protocol pending 48 hours to expiration. The timer had started. I closed the lid, leaned back, and let the music play. Miles Davis, low and slow. The kind of sound that doesn't fill the room, it fills your bloodstream. Somewhere, Matt was probably celebrating, thinking he'd cleaned house. By noon the next day, my phone buzzed once, then again. Notifications from old systems I'd built, ones they'd forgotten I still had access to. License CN8441 expired. Vendor shipment denied, authorization invalid. Dashboard sync failed. I scrolled through them calmly, sipping my coffee. Then a new message appeared. Renee. Matt's freaking out. The system's collapsing. Did you do something? I typed slowly. I followed procedure. She replied with 3 dots. Then nothing. Another alert flashed. Compliance API timeout. Renewal rejected. I stared at it for a moment, then closed the laptop. The noise outside, sirens. A barking dog. Someone arguing about parking felt distant, like a different world. I poured another cup, let the warmth steady my hands, and listened as the saxophone drifted toward the end of the record. Somewhere downtown, the office lights would be blinking red by now, screens frozen, phones ringing without answers. I turned the record over, set the needle again, and smiled. The next 24 hours would take care of themselves. By the second morning, the storm had settled over Belridge like a bad dream they couldn't wake from. I could see it unraveling, and real-time email alerts still reached my old address for audit redundancy. One after another, they piled in. Shipment rejected, license holder invalid, compliance dashboard error, authorization expired, vendor contract paused pending verification. I poured a glass of wine even though it wasn't noon yet. The reports kept coming. At Belridge, Matt was pacing the open floor, barking orders. Renee told me later how it started. Just update the contact info, he said, snapping his fingers at IT. Put my name where hers was. The young tech blinked. It doesn't work like that, sir. Her credentials were biometric. Matt leaned over his desk. You're telling me we can't even change a name? Renee spoke up, quiet but firm. It's not just a name. Maren was the registered compliance officer. Without her digital key, no federal platform will sync. Every renewal path goes through her ID. He glared at her. Then we'll brute force it. Sir, that's do it. When the tech hesitated, Matt grabbed the keyboard himself. He typed fast, muttering something about passwords and outdated systems. 30 seconds later, the monitor flashed access denied, IP blacklisted, notification sent to internal audit. Someone gasped. The screen turned red. Then the next one. Then another. Within minutes, every terminal on the floor started pinging tiny alarms echoing off glass walls. Matt froze, fingers hovering above the keys, sweat beating on his temple. It's just a glitch, he said, voice cracking. She didn't have that kind of control. But she did. Renee stood a few feet away, watching him crumble. Later, she told me his face went pale, like he finally understood what he'd touched. At home, I took another sip of wine and muted my phone. Outside, the afternoon light bled through the blinds, soft and golden. Inside, my laptop glowed faintly. 43 red icons lined up in perfect order. The system wasn't broken. It was following instructions. Thursday morning arrived with a silence thick enough to choke on. By 9 o'clock, Belridge Biotech was paralyzed, phones ringing without answers, servers blinking red like a fever. I wasn't there to see it, but the story reached me before lunch. Gregory Winslow, the CEO, had just flown in from Florida, sunburned and smiling. ready to check on progress. He barely made it past reception before the chaos hit him. "Why are operations offline?" he demanded. No one spoke. The elevator ride-up was silent except for the ping of error alerts from every floor. When he walked into the bullpen, the room froze. Matt was pale, sleeves rolled, voice thin. "Sir," he started, "we're experiencing some temporary compliance issues." Gregory slammed a folder onto the table. "Compliance issues. Half our vendors are frozen." "Who authorized this?" Matt swallowed hard. "It's an access complication. The former compliance officer." "Which one, Doyle?" "Maren Doyle." Gregory's voice dropped an octave. "You fired her." "She was redundant. Across the room." Someone whispered. "The license holder." Renee shut her eyes. Gregory spun toward her. "What does that mean?" Renee hesitated, then said softly, "She was the sole signatory for all federal and clinical certifications. Every active project reports through her credentials." Gregory stared at Matt, color draining from his face. "You fired the person who legally allows us to exist before anyone could speak." The front desk called through the intercom. "Sir, there are inspectors here. Federal audit team. They're asking for the compliance officer." The room went still. Matt looked like he might be sick. "Tell them I'll handle it," Renee whispered. "You can't. Without Maren's ID, they can't even step inside." Gregory pinched the bridge of his nose, muttering, "Unbelievable. 3 days. I leave for 3 damn days." Down in the lobby, 3 inspectors waited with clipboards and quiet authority. Upstairs, Belridge's leadership stood frozen around a dead screen. The company's heart stopped mid-beat. At my kitchen table, I stirred cream into my coffee and watched the clock. 48 hours had passed. The fuse had reached its end. By mid-afternoon, the noise from Belridge had turned desperate. My inbox filled with forwards from old contacts, panicked messages, half-finished requests, subject lines written in all caps. I ignored them until I saw one name appear, Gregory Winslow, the CEO himself. The email was formal, polished, clearly written by legal. Emergency consulting proposal 6-month term. Full confidentiality clause. Attached was a generous offer and a non-disclosure agreement that practically begged. They wanted me back. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. His voice carried that expensive confidence people learn from private schools and boardrooms. "Maren," he said, too calm. "Let's not make this personal. Mistakes were made. We're prepared to be flexible title, salary, whatever it takes." I let the silence stretch until he cleared his throat. "You understand the gravity of this," he continued. "Our entire operations network is non-compliant." I finished for him. He paused. "Exactly. I need your help to restore it." I leaned back in my chair, watching the light move across the wall. "You didn't need my help when Matt fired me." "That decision wasn't mine," he said quickly. "I was told it was a redundancy issue." I almost laughed. "And now redundancy's costing you what, millions?" His voice dropped. "Maren, I'm offering you a chance to come back. Clean slate. We'll compensate you fairly." I spoke quietly, each word measured. "I don't return to burn buildings. Gregory, especially the ones that threw me into the fire." He said my name again, softer this time, but I'd already opened my laptop. After we hung up, I composed a reply, "Gregory, I appreciate the offer. Please find attached a highlighted copy of Clause 7C, the federal confirmation of credential revocation, and a screenshot of your compliance dashboard as of 72 hours post-termination. You'll notice my name still listed, grayed out, irreplaceable. Wishing you compliance and clarity. Maren Doyle." I attached the files, hovered over send, and pressed enter. The message left with a soft chime. Power didn't need volume, it only needed proof. 3 weeks later, my name showed up where I hadn't expected it to on the homepage of LinkedIn. Maren Doyle, Director of Regulatory Integrity. Stratex BioCore. The announcement went live at 8 in the morning. By 9, messages started flooding in. Former colleagues. Cautious congratulations. the kind that read more like confessions. You deserved better. Glad to see you land somewhere strong. I didn't answer most of them. Stratex's office sat only 6 blocks from Belridge's tower. I could see their mirrored windows from my new conference room, and sometimes, when the sun hit the glass, it looked like one building staring into another. 2 weeks after I started, Stratex landed 2 contracts, OmegaMed and Viarc. They were Belridge's crown jewels, the ones Matt used to brag about in every presentation. The news spread fast across the industry bulletins. Both clients cited the same reason for their switch continuous compliance confidence. That phrase had my fingerprints all over it. I was reviewing a new audit schedule when my phone buzzed. A message from Renee. They deserved it. I stared at the words for a moment before replying. They built walls. I built another castle. She sent a single heart emoji and went offline. Later that afternoon, during a meeting, my new team gathered around the table, young, eager, unafraid of quiet. My supervisor, a woman who had built Stratex from the ground up, said, "We don't chase headlines here. Maren, we protect them. That's your kingdom now." I nodded, thinking of the dashboards back at Belridge still red, still choking under their own neglect. No anger surfaced this time. No satisfaction either. Just a stillness that felt earned. After work. I walked past the harbor, across the water. Belridge's logo flickered, one light missing from the sign. The reflection rippled on the surface, broken and uneven. I pulled my coat tighter and kept walking toward the new tower mine now, the one that still glowed steady against the night. The morning light in Baltimore filtered through the blinds of my new office, soft and clean. The air smelled of fresh paint and espresso. On my desk, a mug of coffee steamed beside a single yellow sticky note pinned to the monitor. 5 words, written in block letters in case they ever forget I was the license. I hadn't written it. It was Renee. She'd stopped by on my first day at Stratex, left it without a word, just a quiet smile before heading to her new department. She'd jumped ship 2 weeks after me. Smart girl. I turned back to the screen. The compliance dashboard glowed steady and green, no alerts, no failures, no blinking red lines waiting to collapse. Every number in sync, every certificate live. Perfection. Not by luck, but by structure. A knock at the door pulled me out of the screen. It was Jordan, one of the junior analysts. "Morning, Maren. Audit preps finalized. Everything cleared by internal review. Good." I said, "Send the files to BioCore's vendor portal and archive the confirmations." He nodded. "Already done." When he left, I leaned back, letting the chair tilt just slightly. Across the harbor, Belridge's glass tower still stood half their lights dark, the company trapped in the paperwork they never understood. The headlines had faded, but the consequences hadn't. My phone vibrated once a notification from an industry journal. Belridge Biotech license appeal denied. I read the headline, then swiped it away. It wasn't satisfaction that settled in me, it was quiet certainty. I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd just stopped holding it together. The coffee had cooled, but I lifted it anyway, taking a slow sip as I watched the sunlight spread across the city. The world outside moved on, unaware of the small wars fought behind office glass. I looked at the sticky note again, tracing the ink with my thumb. "They fired a person they thought was obsolete," I said under my breath. Turns out, I was the system. Then I smiled, deleted the last alert in my inbox, and started my day.